Always a pleasure to see you, talk to you about your films. First of all, is it fair to say that we see Wolverine at his most gritty in this one?
Definitely. I think this is the most realistic, gritty. We set it in a world that feels real. I mean, we even have reference to comic books in this movie. The idea that, what is life like after the battle? For a superhero, what happens when they come home and they just have to make a living? What is the collateral damage of being Wolverine? He's a destructive weapon. He is fierce. He is extraordinary. Previous to this, almost indestructible. But in this part of it, he's vulnerable and he's trying his hardest to find some peace in his life.
Yeah, and it's as much as the most physical time we see him and the most emotional time we see him, correct? It was a combination of both. He's quite destroyed.
The movie Unforgiven was a great inspiration to me and to James Mangold because I think I've always felt there was a lot of depth to this character. From the moment I read it, and I'd never read an X-Men comic, I was like, I think I might have got the best comic book hero here because I didn't realize comic books actually wrote such three-dimensional characters, but I had never felt we'd cracked it before this one.
If you remember the first time you played him, did you imagine a backstory that would lead to this? Because he's gone through such an emotional journey, it's almost like the character is different in every film.
I did imagine this sort of backstory, and we did look into it. I did a lot of work on the character over the years. I did animals oil, I worked on how he would look, his stance, his feeling, the lack of memory, the pain, the guilt, all of that stuff. But I don't think I could have even played this version of the character 5 years ago. I mean, I've grown with the character's grown with me. So this is sort of a culmination of 17 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Patrick Stewart as well, it's quite a, it must be quite a joyful acting exercise to be able to explore the characters in such a different way together.
Patrick and I have a scene at the beginning of the movie. It's about 5 or 6 minutes long, which is about the longest scene I've ever had in an X-Men movie. But there's more nuance and layers in that 5-6 minutes than we may have had in the entire rest of the movies put together. And it was absolutely thrilling, and he is an astonishing actor, and I think fans are going to absolutely flip when they see this.
You've played so many memorable characters. Does he remain the one people remember you most for on the street,
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, people come up to me and they'll say this movie or that movie, but majority of it is Wolverine. And it's funny, as I work, people just yell out, particularly in New York, "Yo, Wolverine!" It's sort of, a lot of people know that, and they may not even know my name. And that's good, that's fine with me, that's cool.
They might call you Logan now, they know.
Yeah, right, maybe.
The fans sent me some questions for you. Let's dive into them. First one is from Ibrahim. Would you consider playing Wolverine once again? I mean, obviously, we know you might not. Even if it's for Deadpool with your friend Ryan Reynolds, who said that he would love.
My timing is a little off there because I love Deadpool and Ryan, but I'd already decided this was the last one. It's, time. It was time to leave the party, so to speak. But so unfortunately not. But he doesn't need me. That guy is just absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, well, that movie was great. It would be even greater if you were in it, but your decision. What was the most emotional moment for your character leading up to shooting Logan?
Oh, that's a good question. For my character or for me?
Yeah, for you as the character, I suppose, yeah.
I was nervous about it. If you announce before the World Cup that this is your last World Cup and you played for your country for 17 years, you make it to the final, it is nerve-wracking because not necessarily you have to win, but if you don't play your best on that day, it's very hard to live with it. So I was nervous. It meant a lot to me, and so I put everything into it. But I would say there was some anticipation really leading up to it, and at the very end of it, I was calm and relieved. Not dissimilar to the character, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. From Brian, how did you came into the idea of auditioning as Wolverine? Was it spontaneous or were you suggested for the studio?
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggested. No, I was a nobody. I was doing theatre in London here, and they put out a worldwide search. So that meant basically every agency in the world got 3 pages, and every actor in the world put down a test, and I didn't get it. I was down to the last couple or 2 or 3, but an actor called Dougray Scott got it, and then he was caught up on filming Mission Impossible 2. So you've always got to remember there's a fair bit of luck that goes into these kinds of things, and that was my luck. And sorry for do great, but for me that was my bit of good fortune.
Is it true that even Keanu Reeves auditioned for it and didn't get
I don't know.
Did you know that?
I doubt it. I doubt he auditioned. I'm not sure. I'd never heard that one before. I know Russell Crowe was offered it and turned it down. I've thanked him for that.
Did you? I mean,
but he actually suggested me to the director.
Really? Yeah.
So I really thanked him for that.
Well, I remember interviewing you for the first one. Did you know how important it was going to be as a character for the audiences? How much it was going to explode? That was
Did you know?
No, it was
nobody
kind of
knew, right? It was
craze.
there was no comic book movies, X-Men. People didn't really know. Back then, Comic-Con was about 25,000 people, not 500,000. It was a different world, really. So no one really knew. A friend of mine who was a producer in Hollywood said, "Mate, before this film comes out, you should make sure you book your next movie, you know. Because right now you're the lead in a studio movie, but in a few months you're going to be the lead in a bomb."
Oh, he was so right.
Yeah.
Well, you've so, skillfully navigated your career ever since, because you've managed to do very different roles, It doesn't get more diverse than from musicals to Wolverine and back and all these things. Was it a conscious choice every time, or a series of, good luck coming towards you?
There's always some luck, but it was a very conscious choice, because I got criticized for it from people. I remember people saying, "This is bad. People don't know where you fit, what you do different things. You better just stick at something so that filmmakers and audiences and studios know this is his thing." But there was a point probably after I hosted the Oscars, maybe like 6-7 years ago, where all of a sudden I could feel it in interviews. It became like a strength for me that I did different things. But for many years, people thought it was a weakness. But for me, it was a strategy, because that's what I love, and I think that's what I'm good at. And I think as an actor or artist, challenging yourself to do different things is a really good thing. You can't, if you're in this business and you're afraid of failing or falling flat on your face, you're in the wrong place, wrong business. I think it's important in life not to be afraid, to have a go at something and not be afraid to fail.
No, absolutely. And another good memory, the first Wolverine interviewing you in New York, and then you were doing The Boy from Oz, so going to see the musical.
That's right.
I think it's what actors are about, the diversity, the different skill set, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you live with yourself your whole life, right? So I live with me, and I'm pretty boring to me, right? I get it, I understand it. So when you're an actor, you get to kind of live all these different little lives. My wife says it's great. She gets to have an affair every 6 months.
Exactly. And without giving too much away, so does Wolverine in this one. He gets a bit of multiplicity. But
he does. That's true, yeah.
Have you come to love comic books, understand their core with the fan throughout the years?
I really didn't. Not that I didn't have an opinion about them before. I never read them. I don't know why, growing up. I don't think I had the money for it, actually. I think I used to read the Sunday comic strip. That's what I thought comics were. And I was like, okay. It's just a little funny thing. And now I understand the depth of story, what they have to say, that X-Men was actually an allegory for the civil rights movement. It wasn't just about sort of leotards and people flying through the air. This is Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Magneto and Professor Xavier. And then there is allegories there. There are incredible artists and writers telling these stories that really connect with people. And it's good when, it's one thing to like something when you're 10 or 11, but those 10 or 11-year-olds are just as passionate when they're 45, and I meet them every day of my life.
That's true. Social media started throughout all those years. How do you now use, Instagram and social media to accompany your fans in what you do? I
was nervous about it first. It's like, once I go out on this date, it's like, you can't leave, really, but it's been fantastic for me. I think it's a way to connect. The fans are important to me. They really are, because, I don't know, maybe someone comes from the theatre where you are every night, literally there, telling a story to the fans, to the people who you're connected. And in social media, I'm connected. I can tell them that I've had a skin cancer cut out, and it just makes it easier. I can talk about things that are important to me. I can just share my life and listen to them, I asked on my social media, I said, hey, I'm going to do one more. What do you guys want to see? Just little things and I find it simple and easy and direct, which is the way Aussies like life.
Yeah, absolutely. And true, which is important as well, because it's your message.
Right.
And finally, who would you like to see win the Oscar this year?
Ooh, I'm not allowed to say. Do you know that?
Because you vote.
Yeah.